Thank you so very much. I have to warn you, I will be talking about Bitcoin. So I was about to say don't leave, right? Because so often discussions about Bitcoin are dreadfully dull. You can't understand any of it. There's a website called Clickhole, if you know it. It's wonderful. They ran a video the other day called "Watch this mumbling man explain Bitcoin," and he says, "What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer currency. It travels on around the world. It goes on a thing called the blockchain." And more or less, that's the way most Bitcoin explanations take place, right? It's terrible. So I don't want to do that. I would like to explain it to you without using a lot of technical jargon at all, and explain why it's about a lot more than Bitcoin. It's about human liberation itself. So why is this important to me, and why does it impress so? Because I only have like 12 minutes, and to speak like this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me. I had to choose whatever subject I want. This is important to me because Bitcoin destroyed everything I thought I knew about how the world works. I thought I knew everything there was to know about money. I thought I knew all about information. I thought I knew all about the relationship between governments and markets. I knew everything. And one thing I knew for sure is that there could be no such thing as Bitcoin. So when it was first sent to me in something like 2010, I deleted it. I thought, crazy, nutty, forget it. And it was sent to me again, later that year. Oh, here we go with the crazy Bitcoin nerds again. Forget it. And so on. I was incredulous towards this technology. And then it all changed for me. And I found myself very surprised. We live in an age of surprise, really. The world we live in now, nobody could have imagined would have existed 10 years ago. We keep, day to day being surprised by everything, and yet we're still weirdly surprised by surprise, right? So Bitcoin taught me something important. The value of humility, the importance of, keeping an open mind, and remembering that however much you think you know about a subject, there's probably things you don't know. So in the meantime, I became converted. And I've thought a lot about now why it worked. I found myself in a very weird position of embracing a technology and a reality that I did not understand. I just kind of threw myself into it. I thought, this is real. I don't know why it's real. I'm going to go with that. I wrote a lot of articles about it and that sort of thing. It's like that old Groucho Marx line, who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes, right? So I was in the position of finally just having to believe my own eyes instead of my intellect, right? But in the meantime, I've come around intellectually on it in a way that I think is a little bit unique, and I'd like to share that with you without using complicated descriptions of cryptography or whatever kind of blah, blah, blah people use to throw sand in your face, okay? So let's start this way, and I hope this works. When you were a kid and you were at a birthday party, did you ever play a game called the broken telephone? Sometimes called rumors, sometimes called the Chinese whispers. No, we don't call it that, no. Yeah, well, you know how the game works, right? So you get a group of kids lined up, and you give one of them a phrase. It could just be any phrase, like box turtles sleep underground and eat bugs in winter, And then they pass it to the next person, they pass it to the next person. After about the 10th person, it comes out on the other side, and the person writes down the phrase, and it turns out to be something completely different, Like Jeffrey Tucker's speaking on Bitcoin at Voice and Exit, something like that. Just something completely unrelated. And it's shocking. It's shocking to the kids, shocking to everybody. And the reason is that a lot is lost in translation as the information moves from person to person. And the point of the game, of course, is to warn kids against gossip, right? And it's a good warning. It helps you understand that you have to be very distrustful of information you hear. It may not be accurate. But actually, I think it teaches us other things about the nature of information. Information is a very unusual thing. It's different from the physical world. In fact, I think you can divide the whole world conceptually between two kinds of goods, those which are scarce and those which are not scarce, or those which constitute the realm of ideas and that which embodies the realm of the material world. two very different things. So in the child's game, it's fascinating, right? One person has a bundle of information, passes it to the next child, but it's not really passing that information. It's an attempt to make a copy of that information and reproduce that information in another person's mind. So that's, I think, the first lesson we learned from the game, that information is reproducible infinitely. For example, if the child had passed his shoe, right, then that shoe would have left the possession of one person and entered into the possession of another person, because it's a scarce good. So there's a contest over the shoe. But with information, that's not really necessary. You just reproduce it. You can create a copy of it. Another thing we learn, and that's awesome, actually. It's like Jesus with the loaves and fishes or something, you know? It's like a guy shows up with loaves and fishes and says, well, Master, that's not enough to feed the multitudes. He says, not a problem. And through some means were never explained, you know, the masses were fed with just a couple of loaves and fishes, right? It's amazing. That's what information does. It feeds the multitudes with just one unit. That's awesome. Another thing that's notable about information that you get from the story is that it is malleable. When it passes from one person to another, it may not enter into their mind the same way that it left the mind of the other person. It doesn't really leave that mind, but it's not reproduced exactly the same way. And what's more interesting about it is that the individual mind can change that information into something else. And you can't do that with the physical world. It's only the information world you can do that with. A third thing that's interesting about it is that once you pass on information to 3 people, 30 people, 300 people, 3 billion people, there becomes no central point of failure for the death of this information. It becomes, there's a certain durability to the information. So you can keep trying to kill off the people that have it, but it keeps perpetuating itself. You know, it's like a hydra. Anytime you put anything in the information world, it becomes that. So, what does this mean for our times? Well, we live in a digital age, the information age, they say, right? What we've been doing is migrating as much stuff as possible out of the physical world into the digital world. Why? Because it's more wonderful. Because once you digitize anything, it becomes infinitely reproducible, endlessly malleable, so you can keep trying new iterations of the same thing and getting better and better and better at it. And there's no point of failure, so that information just keeps hurling itself onward into the future without any depreciation or devaluation. I mean, that's epic. I mean, you're leaving really the realm of scarcity, entering into the realm of non-scarcity. And that's essentially why we've been experiencing, I believe, so much economic growth around the world, and why the world keeps getting to be a better and better place, because of this great migration out of the constraints of the physical world into the digital world. Part 1. Now part 2. There's a problem as it relates to 2 critical institutions. We've never been able to figure out how to digitize 2 really critical functions of the nation state. 1 is law, and 2 is money. Because the sheer malleability of information means that it's not very good for law. Law, you want to be non-malleable. You want it to be indestructible. You want it to be maybe infinitely reproducible, but you don't really want it to be malleable. You want it to be the same in all places. So in order for law to be digitized, we have to come up with a system that creates non-malleable, commodified information units. In the realm of money, that's where it gets really strange. For about the last 25 years or 30 years, people have been trying to come up with a digital money. It's really important for digital commerce. I mean, you can't forever be using these antique systems invented in the 1950s that rely on trust and credit cards that only involve the first world. They seriously limit people's. And by the way, I'm tired of having my credit card stolen. I'm sick of the whole thing. The whole industry is a disaster. We need something that's really digital. We needed digital money, but nobody could figure out how to do it because nobody had solved the problem of reproducibility. That's something you don't really want with money. You don't want the ability to infinitely reproduce it because that reduces its value and reduces its functionality. And by the way, this is one of the big problems with central banking, right? I mean, you want money to be a scarce good. You want it to behave like physical property, not like digital property with infinite reproducibility. Okay, nonetheless, 20 years went by. In 2008, a white paper came out written by an anonymous programmer known as Satoshi Nakamoto, who proposed a solution to both the problem of digitization of law and the digitization of money. And the solution involves a ledger that is distributed all over the world. To get into that ledger and to make some difference in the ledger requires some proof of work that you've done. He chose CPU power. He wanted it to be a non-trust system, so you didn't have to know people's identities. So you use cryptography to encrypt that information, public key cryptography in particular. And the ledger lives simultaneously all over the world. It's not just in one small place, but it's all over the world. The result was something that was amazing, but perfectly valueless for 10 months. Until October the 5th of 2009, which I believe was the great hinge of history. That's when everything changed, and hardly anybody noticed. In fact, only about 100 people noticed. Bitcoin, which is the marker, the digital unit that causes the blockchain to work, the distributed ledger to work, obtained a value, obtained a market price. It was only 1/19th or so of 1 penny, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was $1 trillion or only just this tiny micro unit. What matters is it suddenly had a price. My friends, what that told us was that this was actually possible, and that was awesome. From then, the rest of the history just writes itself, and really doesn't matter. It's just been a matter of people getting really excited about something. But the big change happened already in 2009. What does it mean for the future? I think it means the globalization of money, the inclusion of billions of people into the world financial economy who haven't previously been there, so they can contribute their value to the worldwide division of labor in ways that have never been possible. It raises the possibility of a non-contiguous creation and enforcement, voluntary enforcement of legal institutions we've traditionally associated with the nation state. It means the inclusion of all of humanity in the creation of new kinds of regimes that are voluntary and new kinds of associations like we've never seen before. In a sense, I think it's the most exciting thing that's ever happened to humanity. Let me take you back now to this children's game. Imagine if that first child with a bundle of information could have put that information in an unbreakable round glass and been able to hurl it across the room and it was caught by another person and could be read only by that person, and that person could have hurled it over to the next town and over to the next country, and that there were an infinite number of these little balls that were designed to convey certain commodified information units, and were traveling peer to peer all over the world. The game would change very dramatically. That's what's happening in our world right now as we're speaking. The blockchain is working. It is right now changing our world because it's fundamental. It upsets everything. It allows the commodification, individuation of non-forgeable information units that can be ported globally without regard to the nation state or any existing power structure in the world. Yes, there will be humps between now and there, but my friends, let us realize something amazing. We live in remarkable times. To be alive in the age of Bitcoin is necessarily to live in an age of optimism and surprise and bright hopes for humanity. Thank you very much.